Transmission time. So one of the things you might notice right off is that this is supposed to have a shaft coming out of it. The spline on the end. It goes into the pressure brake clutch. Into the, you get the power from the engine. The bell housing, of course, is not attached right now. And probably a good argument for why you should always leave the bell housing attached. I don't know when or how this happened. As you can see, it's just sort of sheared off right there. The plan here, you know, the shaft may be hardened, so it may have been a little brittle and gotten hit. The concern, I found another shaft on eBay. It's called a First Motion shaft. But the concern is whatever hit this or leaned on this hard enough to break it off might have caused some damage in here. Plus, I have no way of knowing, you know, I don't know how this ran when it was taken out of the car and left. So I'm going to open this up and try to assess whether this is worthy of a rebuild or if I should just be looking for a whole new transmission. So let's we'll get it opened up, look in there and see what the gears look like, see if anything else is broken in it, any bearings are damaged, see if we can see any more evidence of what where that force was applied, how it was applied, and what it might have hurt. And so all these came off pretty easy. One of the studs came out at the same time, no big deal. All these had lock washers on them. These did too. Actually, some are missing. This is interesting. So back out there, sorry. The washers on this, I mean, I guess these are some kind of crush washers. I don't know if it's supposed to have two. That's curious. When I opened the last of these, it was kind of sprung a little bit. Wonder what. Okay, so our first look in there. Oh, I mean, I don't see any rust. I guess that's good. I noticed it was not even a drop of transmission fluid in there. I guess that because it was drained. So all these little dots, that's just sweating, so that's fine. All right, I noticed safety wires. I don't know a whole lot about this, so I'm gonna have to read up on exactly how to do that. I know there's sort of an art to that. And I know that this car has plenty of those. I'm noticing though that from what I've seen of safety wire, I'm not sure that looks like what I recognize. Looks more like speaker wire. Oh, okay, so here's why it sprung up. So you got these little springs back here. Neat. In the back. Okay, so I'm turning the output shaft. I guess as I move the gear shift level forward and backwards, yeah. So that's what that is. These all move. It'd be interesting to continue taking this apart and see how this works. I think maybe this has a synchro mesh for second, third, and fourth, or maybe just third and fourth. It'd be interesting to see how that works. All right, let's keep going. All right, neat detail. So you see the ball bearing here. It came out of those holes where the springs were, and then you see you've got the detent, and the shaft. So I guess that's how you know the position. So that's what you feel when you're moving. Here's the gear shift lever back and forth. You're feeling the detents in the shaft line up with the ball bearings, which are pushed down by the little springs. So that's pretty cool. Working on the back now. I believe it's called the tail end. This is the gear shaft here, and this is the little clip that holds this in. I got this spring on backwards. And then the spring of death is hidden under here. And once you take the little clip out, then it launches up in the air right at you. So that's why you always wear safety glasses. No big deal. Actually, I managed to duck it. And so we probably got maybe a seal in there. Okay, then on this end, you got a cotter pin here. That might just press out, and then got a nut right there. Plenty of spider eggs. I guess that comes with it. A good place if I were a spider. I think I'd want to live in there too. Alright, so we'll focus. Okay, get this tail thing off. Take these out and get this part off, and then I think I can slide that off the shaft that runs up through here and take this back off. Dug a little bit deeper here. So you see, I was thinking maybe this was a pin that you knocked out, but it looks like it's a pin on each side. You can see over here, and it comes in. My guess is maybe this is something that's either brazed on or possibly threaded on, maybe from the bottom. You can see how that keeps that in place. And then it had this little bolt here. You see it's got a washer on it too. I'm sure these are just copper crush washers. That one looks a little bit beyond crushed. And then I have a little spring. Sorry about that. Okay. A little spring down at the bottom. Let's see if you can see in there. Not really. Not sure what that is. I guess that could be for lubricating the shaft that's in here. I think once we get this out, that'll make probably a little bit more sense. So I'm sure you guys out there that have done this before were sort of laughing when I said I was going to take this out. So this goes in like that. It's pretty simple. And there's, you know, I was speculating about the 2 pins in here. Yeah, there's 2 pins in here. These are pressed in and then peened. So they don't come out. To get this out, you can see the bottom. That slot doesn't go all the way through. So you have to have those pins out to get that out. Supposedly you can grind the peen off here and then push them out. I wasn't able to do that. I got a Dremel bit that just trimmed off the ends such that I could get the shaft out. Then I ground them down flush in here, and then actually I couldn't even push them out this way. I pushed them out far enough that I could grind. It sort of had a I don't think it was peened. I think that's the way it came. Had a little head on it. I ground that off on each side and then pushed them back into the middle and took them out. Another couple notes. You see the let's see if I can get it from an angle. You can see that that ball has a detent in it. And if you look at the end, this little guy right here goes on that. And then the end of him, remember we took out the cotter pin there. It goes through there. It has a spring, and then you can probably see that ball. Yeah, you can see it from there. It goes in there. And so that keeps that shaft right there in that. So that's the purpose of that. I was kind of wondering why we were taking the pin out of that. I didn't see anything else in there, but it ends up being a spring. It's holding that little ball bearing right down there in place. One other thing, let's see if I can get under there and show you. Yeah, it's not going to focus. This shaft here, it has the Woodruff key in it, so just kind of be aware of that in there. You don't drop that out, kick it underneath the shop floor. All right, well, along the shop floor. So I think now this can come out, and then we can get to taking the rest of the transmission apart. Boy, I hope I don't need a Dremel tool and a torch again on this. So hopefully the rest of it goes a little bit smoother. Oh, also putting these back. So I read on a forum someone suggested tapping these. and putting set screws in there and put those in with Loctite. I think that's an excellent idea. I think that's allowing me to get the depth in there to where I can get that depth in there a little bit more precisely, or very precisely. And then if that needs to come back out, and just heat it up to loosen the Loctite and pull them back out. So I think that's a better way of doing it, and I think I'll be doing that. So finally, something that came off easy. You just undo these, the 4 bolts there, and then you pull it back a little bit and you'll see why. So this shaft that runs right up the middle is going to go down in that hole right there. So you kind of pull it back out of it just a little bit, and then you can pull it off. And you can see what the shift lever is doing here. Right, whoop, you got it right here. Here, when you got the shift lever in your hand, you're moving it, end up moving this back and like this, and then forward and backwards. And then that is sitting in this right here. You can see it's got a piece that it pushes down. You got the spring here, you got here. So going over this way, you're going to be running this rod up, and left over here, you're going to be running that rod up. And I guess this one in the middle was frozen, and I think it was just a little bit of surface rust on the end. We got that cleaned up. That moves, and you can kind of tell. It's neat. You can look down in. Let's see if it'll. Yeah, you can see that. So, well, maybe you can see the detents there, right there, and then you can see this one is in it right there. So that would mean it's all the way back. If you look to the end, you can see that it's always in there, all the way in there. And so it would go up, and there'll be another detent on the shaft back in there. And I've got the, actually I have an original shop manual on this. And it shows all that, but there's a lot of detail missing. It would have been really great to have seen the grooves in here and have the pins highlighted. I don't know if that's just not a detail that they got in these drawings, or if maybe that's something that changed before or after mine was done. But I'm gonna go over this a little bit more and understand some of these things before I pull it apart. There's also a good article on the web to read about it, so I'm gonna go through and read that. And then we'll come back out and finish taking the rest of it out. Oh, and I got a chance to get down in there. I still can't really focus with it with the camera, but the gears look fantastic. This is a very, very, very nice surprise. And I wouldn't say surprise, because no, the car hasn't been driven in a really, really long time. But, you know, it could have been wrecked. I mean, it could literally just be garbage. You've got this was cut off right here. And I've looked back in there. There's no run out in it. It doesn't move back and forth. So I think that's a good sign. Rotates freely. All the levers move up and down. Gears inside turn freely. So I think I'm in good shape. I think it's really just going to be a matter of taking this apart, cleaning it up. I'll probably replace bearings, period. And then, of course, the main shaft will be here next week, and we'll put that back in there. Okay, so this is going to be probably the most boring part of the video, but this is just for me. When I go to put this back together, you've got these that are wired in. If the wire goes through the nut, it goes down, it goes through that hole, up, and then it's twisted on the other side. I don't think that's the right wire. We can find out later. Again, through the hole, through the nut, both sides, and then twisted. Same thing here. This is going to come off, that's going to come off, and then we're supposed to take set this down to the side, and then loosen this and that, and slide this rod out, and then grab the selector, which is, okay, I guess it's going to stay where it is. Basically take these things off. You see the relationship of this is after that. This one is on here. This one's wired to here. This is connected to the side here. No washer, castle nut out here, and it is wired. Gonna take the shaft out and take things out one at a time and lay them here in the order 1, 2, 3, and then as we get the selectors out, put them back on the shafts and sort of reassemble things in place over here, and then that should allow us to get to the gears. We have to take off the flange mounts to the drive shaft, and then we can take off this back part, take this out. It should be able to move the main shaft out. That should leave, I believe, will leave the first motion shaft in place. We can then take it out. Given the condition of everything else, I think that's going to be, we're going to clean it and inspect it, of course, but that's probably going to be the end of what we need to do. We'll wait on the main shaft to come in, put it back in, check the 2 bearings on it, and then put it back together. So let's, I'll pop in if we have any surprises, but I think it makes sense. One great tip that I've done here is to make copies of these so that my greasy hands don't just destroy my manual. So this is going along pretty well. One thing to note, the manual says something about circlips in here, but this didn't have any, and judging from where the detents are, I don't think, I don't know, it doesn't look like that there would be anything on it, because it needs to go back further. Certainly for it to come out, it needs to come off. Also, so remember we had the 3 ball bearings down here that were underneath the springs. Well, there's also one, or 2 that are side by side this shaft here, and the other shafts. Let's see if you can pull it. I've got it one. Took it out right here. See, so this is the top ball bearing is those detents, and then the ones in the middle come in there, and I have stuck my magnet in the side there and was able to pull out that, and so I think I'll be able to get the other one out. Again, you need to make sure you knock any corrosion off on this, and then as you're sliding these the shafts out, these tend to move a little bit in place, and when they do, that goes, if it moves back this way, you see that creates a little bit of an angle, and so it kind of digs into the shaft. So as you pull the shaft, you need to sort of, with the other hand, hold these straight up and down, and it slides off real easy. The rear casting part is now off. This was fairly simple, except for an area right here. It has a nut on here that is just hard up against the casting, so I guess that requires a special tool to get off. I now have said special tool. I ground down the end of the wrench so it would fit in there. So that worked fine. Let's see, so we've got paper thin gasket that's ruined. We've got one shim here. I don't see any more shims. I have some kind of ring here. Let's see if we can see what that is. That's the rear part that just came off back here. Okay, so 19 and 20 and then 17. 19, 20, and 17. So 17 is circlip on the main shaft bearing. 18 guard bearing first motion shaft, and 19 is a plate guard. I don't see 20. No, I don't, it's not in here. Oh, there it is. All right, so there's 19 and 20. I'll have to measure those with the micrometer, but it I can't tell if they're the same or if maybe the one that was on here, which is 19, if maybe it's just a tiny bit thinner. Okay, I'll keep on trucking. All right, so success. I've got everything apart and didn't break anything. Actually a lot of difficulty with this. To extract the lathe shaft spindle by tapping it at the forward end with a suitable copper or brass strip. The wording is different on the which parts are. This is essentially the lathe shaft spindle. I couldn't tell where this is, and the reason you can't tell where it is because it's underneath this. You can sort of see it now, maybe a little bit, but the short of it is, this is the hole right here. You tap it out this way, the shaft comes out the back. There's the shaft right there. When you do so, the gears, you can see these gears right here, fall down, and when they do, they would be sitting with these gears. So when they fall down, these gears have room to move forward. Then you go and you tap the main shaft this way, and it pushes this bearing out. Once you take that bearing out, this is the bearing right here in the front. It's going on the main shaft, or I'm sorry, first motion shaft, which is the thing of ours that is broken right there. So you can see it's right there, and it would have the spindle with the splines coming out. So once that's out, then you tap, you got to take this circlip off, the guy on the back here, and then you tap the main shaft, and these things roll around, so you got to catch those little needle bearings. You tap the shaft backwards, it pushes this bearing right here out the back, and then you knock, this is the one gear for the speedometer, take off. You push all those things off the shaft. There's another sort of a spacer that goes on it this way. And once those all come out, now you can take this whole shaft, lift it up out this way, and slide it out. So that's how it comes apart. A couple little notes. You've got the speedometer thing, you've got the bearing, and you've got this something or other there. And it rides in right there. You can see it's kind of a little bit of cone shape. It rides right on that. Okay, so hey, this turned out great. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out, look at these gears that are on the lathe shaft in the bottom, figure out how in the world those go back in. I guess since you're just pressing the bearings in, you can go ahead and put the lathe shaft back in with the gears on it, then put the main shaft back in. Hopefully that's covered in the workshop manual. The workshop manual is great, but one sentence can take like 30 minutes, so it's a little bit hard to understand, to get an idea of what they're talking about. All right, moving on. All right, so here's the lathe shaft, and then the gears are on it. Lay this down like it's oriented there. You can see that there. And then these little guys right here, these are the little needle bearings. And you can see them just scattering about where they fell. So when you take that out, and not that I really knew I was taking it out, I just sort of picked it up and everything fell out this way. You need to be somewhere where you can catch them all. Yeah, I can't wait to Google how you get those back in. That'll be fun. I'm noticing that these the washer here, you can see how that's got that big rub down there, and then this washer here has sort of a similar issue. So hopefully those are just part of a typical rebuild kit I can get. So I'd like to change the bearings. I'm missing the circlip on the front. So I need that, and of course to get the first motion shaft, I need to get these washers, and and that should put it back in. One last detail on this. See, these were laying down in the bottom. You take this gear here, comes out of this area right here, and you can pull this gear backwards and up. I'm saying gear because it's wrapped around. The gear is in this selector, and you can pull it out. And then to get this shaft out, the shaft itself is threaded on the inside, so I got another bolt and screw that in there, and then you can pull that shaft on out, and then the selector is going to come free. So with that, that is everything out. So we'll be able to clean this up and go ahead and get the kit for rebuilding it. Get the first motion shaft in and put it back together. Of course, we'll take the time to paint it as well. This has the red. This is the MG engine red. I believe it's what it's supposed to be on it. So get ready to put it back together. Actually, it went pretty smooth. It's just the terminology in the manual sometimes doesn't match their diagram, so you have to sort of get past that. Okay, I missed a detail. So this gear here is on this shaft, and this shaft, you see this little end here, it is positioned so it's up, sitting in the casing like that, so that it gets oil down into that, and then it's got a hole in the side. So that's how it gets the transmission fluid, I think oil in these, we get down in there for that gear. So this goes up, and you'll be able to see it when it goes in there. It sticks out right here, and then it's sticking up. Okay, that's it.